a Range Rover, the big full-size luxurious Range Rover experience, but it's a little bit out of your price range. Heck, maybe even the Range Rover Sport now is out of your price range with the average transaction price over or around $100,000. And you don't really want the smaller Range Rover Evoque. It's just maybe too small for your size, and it still isn't really offering that Range Rover experience on a budget. Well, then comes in the Velar, that compact luxury SUV contender from Range Rover that has now been around for quite some time and has received quite a bit of an update for the 2024 model year. This particular SE dynamic example we have right here is the mid-range spec, though is configured up to $80,000 as we see fit right now. And for 2024, we have a lot of new changes. A lot of this new reduced theme that we're seeing with the Range Rover lineup has now been brought over to the Velar. Lines are simpler, the grille is more cleaner, refined. The interior removes most, if not all, of the buttons in place of this really sleek, almost timeless style design element. And while all this may not be working for everyone, it definitely is a nice update for the Velar that has been a little bit lacking in terms of some of the more advanced, newer features that we're seeing across the lineup. So hopefully we'll see even more stuff to come with the Velar down the road. And we're going to see how this Velar fits into a very crowded, compact luxury SUV class and how it really is sitting at the top or even over the edge of that class, bleeding into even higher classes once you start looking at its price point and really pinning it against some really hard-hitting competitors like the all-new Maserati Grecale, the Porsche Macan, and on the more lower end, a BMW X3, a Mercedes GLC, and heck, even some cars in between. Nonetheless, I'm going to take you guys on a full tour and review of this 2024 Range Rover Velar, the ups, the downs, how I've been living with it over the past week, and whether if you should consider it in this very crowded, compact luxury SUV class. Let's go dive in. Well, what do we have powering this 2024 Velar? Well, in the United States, there are two power options. There is a turbocharged 4-cylinder, and then there is this engine here, the P400 Powertrain, which is a mild hybrid 3-liter straight 6. And this is a proper Range Rover-esque platform in the sense that it's a rear-wheel drive based architecture, and this one's particularly shared very closely with the Jaguar F-Pace SUV. In this particular application, this 3-liter turbocharged and supercharged Inline-6 is paired with a 48-volt mild hybrid system, sending power to all 4 wheels. It's making around 395-ish horsepower and just over 400 pound-feet of torque through an 8-speed automatic gearbox. This is a pretty potent engine. We can find it in plenty of vehicles in the Jaguar Land Rover lineup, and I think it's a pretty good engine in terms of it has a nice sound, it's incredibly smooth, and has really strong power delivery. Though one department where I think it could see some improvements going down the road is in fuel efficiency. You're not really going to be seeing incredible numbers in this engine, even with the 48-volt mild hybrid system. I've been averaging around 20 to 21 miles per gallon, and sometimes even that might be a stretch. Sometimes on the highway you may even see 24, but it's in that lower range of your MPG figures. Though if you're buying a Range Rover and you have all of that money to spend on this vehicle, you might not even worry about that at the end of the day. And that is where you kind of care about the smoothness and capability of this powertrain. Now up front here, there are some mild changes. So we actually have a slimmer, more sleeker grille design, and it's a little bit more, again, of a slimmer, sleeker bumper design. We also have new pixel style LED headlights here with over 290 individual LEDs in each headlight to kind of help to map your light across the road better. And of course, in some market, it unlocks that matrix LED feature, which I don't believe is available still in the United States, but they do look sleeker and nice, just a little too similar still to the pre-facelifted Range Rover Velar. This particular Velar has some interesting options, and another one of those is these 21-inch dark gray metallic style wheels here. They have this really unique, very sporty-esque design that I honestly would find more on maybe a sedan or a sports car rather than the Range Rover Velar SUV, but I think they do look quite nice. You can see this kind of contrasting finish on the wheels, and they are wrapped around some pretty nice Michelin rubber as well, which I think does a great job on the road. And this whole wheel, tire, and suspension setup combined together really creates a very isolating, luxurious driving experience that you would expect from the Range Rover price tag. Now, much like the front of the 2024 Range Rover Velar, not much has actually changed out in the rear over here. We do have sleeker and slimmer taillights, just like what we saw up front, and you can kind of see these really cool integrated holes in there, which are kind of letting the LED light simmer through. It kind of creates this really cool cascading effect in the taillights. We also have a sleeker and more reduced, I would say, bumper design back here. It's all very clean, allows for a good approach and departure angles on both front and rear of this Velar, if you ever need to use those. But otherwise, again, very sleek, slim, reduced. They're kind of just harking back on a lot of these excessive design elements to really get that pure Range Rover design essence that we're seeing across their entire lineup. Up here in the back, we do have a hidden rear wiper, and we also have this kind of aero style spoiler on the top of the trunk lid over here. We also have a nice hump and shark fin for our integrated radio controls, and of course we have a power rear tailgate that we can easily open up with the press of a button here. Opens pretty quickly as well, and it reveals a decent amount of cargo space in the back of the Velar, but the exterior size of the Velar may trick you a little bit. It's really not that big on the interior. It is truly a compact luxury SUV. It's not something like the size of a BMW X5 even. It's a little bit on that smaller end, more akin to like an X3 or a GLC, and you can kind of notice that in the cargo space, especially with the sloping rear roofline. I was able to fit 2 full-size luggage cases back here off to the airport, so that does actually mean this thing is pretty wide, and you can still stack some stuff on top of that. Open up this floor here, you actually get a spare tire back here, which is a nice touch. We don't see that too much on modern day SUVs at all. Other than that, there's really not much going on back here. All the surfaces are very nice and thickly carpeted, lined here. Feels very premium back here. We also have a cargo cover as well that can be locked into place. But other than that, there really isn't much in terms of features in this particular rear trunk space of the Range Rover Velar, especially since we don't have a third row at all. Now let's hop inside the rear end of the Range Rover Velar. We're gonna pop open those door handles here, which do literally pop out for you. Opening up the door, and we see we have this really nice interior combination here. This is kind of this cloud gray and black leather. This is the nice grained leather option on the Range Rover Velar. And we can see we have this really dark open pore matte wood trim in here. So let's see what's new for 2024 in the interior of the Velar. Hopping inside, and you already will notice that the Velar is not the largest vehicle, and you can see that in this rear leg space over here. It is honestly quite cramped actually, and I am sitting behind myself, so I'm 6 feet tall. This is my driving position right here, and yes, I can fit behind myself, but it's a little bit on the tighter end. We do have this storage cubby behind the front driver's seat and the passenger seat over here. We also have 2 air vents as well as 2 USB-C ports, heated rear seats, and this 12-volt socket as well. So nice amenities back here. We also have this absolutely massive glass panoramic roof, which thankfully has a sunshade that opens and closes. They're going to protect you from some strong sunlight. Let's close the rear doors. Nice solid thunk there. We have nice privacy glass back here, a decent amount of visibility for rear passengers. The door and all the design in here, again, is that really reduced minimalist-esque design language here. So there's pretty much no controls anywhere. You can see we just have this very large door opening lever right there, as well as a small control for our windows that is illuminated at night. We also see we have the subtle ambient lighting on this particular one. We don't have the colored one, as we don't have that option. Even at $81,000, it's a little bit ridiculous that you have to option that stuff in, though. And also some of the materials back here, a little bit too hard and plasticky for my liking at this price point. Though the seats themselves, I think, in the back seat are actually quite comfortable. Lots of rear support as well as thigh support back here, so I do quite like that. Backrest support's quite nice. We also have our headrest built in and 2 cup holders that fold down from the center console, and of course we can fold down each of these seats independently, which is a really nice touch. So I could fold this center row down independently from this passenger seat, for example. So we have that nice versatility in terms of cargo space back here, though just passenger space is definitely on the shorter side. And for example, this seat for the passenger up front is very far forward. You can see you have a little bit more space, but then you can just see how much of a smaller space that passenger will be getting. So if you want to keep that in mind when buying a Velar, definitely consider it, and you may want to upgrade to the larger Range Rover Sport for some more room if you're able to shell out the additional money. Now let's go on the front end of the Velar for 2024 and see what's new. Again, same treatment we see on the door panels here. Nice, very materials here, but again, very minimalist in the design language. Of course, we have more controls up here for our driver. So we have our memory seats located on the doors as well. And we have a Meridian audio system in this one, which is actually a standard audio system. It's actually not bad for a standard audio system. So that actually was a nice thing to see this week. We do have a decent amount of controls for our front seat, though I would like to see a little bit more adjustment, especially in terms of some side bolster adjustment. That would be a nice addition, though. Again, pretty comfortable seats, though. I think they could use a little bit more thigh support and other adjustments in here for a little more of a luxurious touch, especially at this $81,000 price point. Now hopping inside, closing the door, Again, nice solid thunk of an experience here in this Range Rover Velar for 2024. And let's power it on. We have our start stop button located up here. And I love how this retracts every single time we unlock or turn on and off the vehicle. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have this really nice kind of cloud gray and black leather interior option here. And really what we're looking at now is this updated interior for 2024, and it's really much exactly what we saw on the 2024 Evoque. It's that minimalist design language, and it kind of frees up all the space from any sort of buttons whatsoever. So a little bit of a controversial take, but let me talk about some of the nice things that I do like about this interior. First off is this steering wheel design. And I think this very thin spoke two-tone leather wrapped steering wheel is a very gorgeous, luxurious touch, and it feels very nice in the hand, feels very premium as well. I like this kind of galvanized metal-esque trim we have over here. I believe it's plastic, though it looks really nice, better than just a typical sort of gloss black plastic. We also have this nice stitched airbag cover as well, and those dynamic buttons over here that do change depending on your function here. So you can see when I go to different menus, they will kind of change their function. They actually feel quite nice and easy to use here on the steering wheel. So they're not touch buttons, they are actual like kind of haptic buttons you press, like that feature there. And we have these absolutely massive metal paddle shifters here to control our 8-speed automatic gearbox if you do choose to do so. We have automatic lights and high beams, front and rear fog lights as well on this particular one, as well as automatic wipers. And these console shifters and stalks up here feel quite nice as well. Nothing too cheap, which I do like. As you can see, like I mentioned, there are no buttons really anywhere in this interior. We have this lone shifter over here, which is very monolithic in its design essence. It's really just, this whole area is designed for the gear selector, and it's very simple. It's a reverse, neutral, drive, sport, park, and their park is included with your emergency stop and brake as well. So it's all blended into one button now. You can see we have this cascading open pore wood trim over here, which is quite nice, where the old air controls used to be and all the climate controls is now a wireless charging mat over here, as well as a little storage cubby and a USB-C port. I will say though, this wireless charging mat gets a little bit too hot to actually charge your phone, and it's honestly just made my phone overheat more times than actually charging it. We have this material up on the dash, which I believe is leather, though it kind of feels like this neoprene style soft touch material, which is also found on the door cards as well. It's very interesting style material. It also feels like what it is on this center console armrest over here, which shifts inwards and outwards for both ends to cover up your cup holders, and opens up individually to reveal some center console storage over here. So here we have USB-C and a port. So a lot of charging ports on this interior, which actually is a quite nice touch. Now, since all the buttons are gone, it's all been moved into this infotainment system here. And I have voiced my opinion on this infotainment system before in the Evoque and even in the Defender. I like it. It's a good actually system. It's very intuitive to use. The graphics are gorgeous. The screen is gorgeous as well. You know, things are pretty quick and responsive most of the time. I really don't have any issues with it. My only complaint here is that there's just too much stuff shoved into this display, and everything is in here. And I'm going to go through the same stuff I complained about in the Evoque. Now, before we get to those complaints, I do like how they place the screen. It's very easy to access things very quickly from the steering wheel on your hand. So it's in your line of sight, honestly, and it's really not super confusing actually in terms of taking your eyes off the road. What's annoying though is getting through certain menus. So let's say you want to turn the climate controls on. You can have to tap through this menu here. You can turn on your air, you can turn on your AC or heated seats here and adjust all this stuff. But if you want to change, let's say the fan direction, you have to go to this next menu here and then go through that. You can turn on auto, and then you have your AC controls buried in this kind of series of menus here that you have to kind of cycle to get through. Now, another quick access feature they've included here is to quickly change your temperatures, for example. So I can just scroll on this instead of tapping through these menus. And now you can see my fan speed's going to kick on really high. Definitely all of you guys on the camera here, but those are some of the motions there that kind of make a little bit of sense. You have some quick access controls over here. And then the same thing goes for your drive mode selector. So this is actually a little bit confusing because I've sometimes actually click this versus the climate controls. You can tap your drive mode selector to reveal the menu, or you can just quickly swipe through them. So I can go to dynamic really easily like that, or I can go to eco or the off-road modes easily like that. And, you know, again, it's a pretty easy motion to do. I just wish there was like a physical knob or something, or dial that kind of separates a lot of this clutter out of the display, which honestly would make this display an even better experience. Just like on iDrive as well, you have this kind of app drawer layout here, which is kind of separated from the rest of our stuff. We can see our driving and energy impact, like I mentioned in the engine review part of this.
really good engine. I quite like it. It's just not super fuel efficient. We have an off-road pages as well, so we can kind of see what the status of our all-wheel drive system, some tilt meters, all of our terrain response modes are located in here. And of course, we have wireless CarPlay and Android Auto that are able to be connected on this, so I just don't have those connected right now. Those work really well, actually. Really no issues or complaints there. Settings are a little bit limited and a little bit of a clunky menu to kind of get through sometimes, I will say that. I mean, you do have a nice large host of safety systems in your Velar to kind of keep you on the roads. You have your blind spot monitoring. You can see it's kind of blinking out right there. You have full adaptive cruise control as well, and lane keep assist. You can turn it on and off by this button, and you can control all that stuff through these settings as well. So you have quite a lot of features and things in this vehicle. It's just, I may not look like it at first because you're just staring at this one screen that has all this stuff kind of buried through these menus and stuff to get there with them. So enough with the ranting there. Thankfully, they didn't bury the control to open up your glove box. That's still a manual control there. A nice felt lined space over there. I don't believe there's actually a light in here. I think that would be a nice touch to have a light in there for a luxury vehicle, but alas, that's all we really have. We also are missing out on the 360 camera option, as you may notice. We only have a rear camera on this particular one. Thankfully, we have parking sensors all around us. We also don't have the option for the ambient lighting, as well as the option for the rear digital camera. So again, high price tag for this vehicle, and we're missing a lot of features that are still have to be added on through packages. Thankfully, we can open this absolutely massive panoramic glass roof, which I really think is a nice standout feature here. A lot of these panoramic roofs now are becoming fixed and not having the ability to open, which I kind of think defeats the whole purpose of having these sunroofs. It's not just a glass piece to stare through. You want to have that free flowing air. So I'm liking that they're able to still have that option here. Otherwise, you know, that's pretty much a nice big tour of the interior of this Range Rover Velar for 2024. Right off the bat from the Velar, you understand, I think, a little bit of where all that money is going when you're paying for this vehicle. A, it's in styling, which is one of the three main pillars that Land Rover and Range Rover took when developing this vehicle. Second, it's just utmost luxury, and that is where you really experience it in the ride and those really crisp, refined, subtle, minimalistic style details that they've really worked out here. This thing, I call this the bump erasing suspension. It's like so comfortable and quiet in here. It really is like on the levels of something like the 7 Series from BMW, and that was one of the closest vehicles that came to mind when experiencing just how isolated in terms of sound, any sort of vibrations or noise this cabin is from the exterior. The glass is acoustically laminated. We have really fantastic sound insulation in the body structure. And everything, and I mean absolutely every aspect of this powertrain and drive experience has this buttery smoothness to it that really encapsulates that whole Range Rover experience. Everything from the throttle pedal, very light, smooth applications, which pairs equally as well with this super smooth Inline-6 engine under the hood here. Of course, mild hybrid and turbo and supercharged. It's just fantastically smooth powertrain, and we're driving now in comfort mode. We can pop it into eco mode here, and the throttle gets even lighter and more smoother. It's a really nice, comfortable experience, and you're just wafting along essentially. And this does not even have the air suspension upgrade package, and I honestly don't think you need it. I think the air suspension package, from what I've seen from reviews, is a fantastic air suspension, don't get me wrong, but I think it's going to a little bit more noise and actually bumps and jitters into the cabin versus this standard suspension, which I think is just fantastic. You don't even need that air suspension package. It's that good in this Velar, and that is where I think this thing is its absolute best, just cruising along. Remember, this is a luxury vehicle. If you want a sporty Range Rover, go for the Range Rover Sport. This is not a sporting Range Rover. This is a luxury vehicle. And other than the driving experience, the big things, of course, of 2024 are the minor exterior revisions as well as this interior changes here. And it's so minimalistic and simple in here. You might think you're in a Volvo at this point because that's kind of like their thing, but this is now Range Rover's new thing, and it works and doesn't work, I think, in some areas. Some controls are very easy to move and access from the steering wheel, such as your drive modes. I can quickly just change them on the fly. I pop it here into dynamic mode. Now you can get adaptive all suspension and all these different features with this dynamic pro package that you can get, but this one does not have it, so you do kind of lose all those individual customizable features. And coming around this corner here, you can see the large amounts of body roll, I guess just from me leaning over from the forces here, that the Velar has. And you know, that's another emphasis here, that this is a luxury, floaty, comfortable vehicle and not a sporting vehicle. So that being said, this P400 powertrain does offer plenty of punch when needed, and it makes a nice, unfortunately fake augmented sound of that inline-6 sound. I think it's just amplified from the engine. Oh my gosh, there's so much body roll here. But it handles itself well. It doesn't feel like it's all over the road. It's just this natural, very comfortable, soothing, progressive, luxurious type of body roll. And I'm not just making up words here. That's just the best way I have to describe it. Oh my gosh, this thing really, once it's in that power band, it just punches you off the line. Really impressive, actually. And it's just this smooth, buttery transition between gears. You honestly don't even feel this transmission changing gears most of the time. It just kind of blends through all of them. And again, even at these higher highway speeds here, it's just silent in here. You do hear a little bit of wind rushing above you, but it's not any sort of buffeting or loud wind noise. It's just that quietness you kind of just hear in this cabin, and how it kind of just isolates you from everything. Now, on the downside of all this, even with this mild hybrid system, and I mentioned this in my full review, is the fuel economy on the Velar with the P400 powertrain, the inline-6, is just a little bit on the lower end of the segment here. You're really going to see on average under 20 miles per gallon in your day-to-day driving experience. If you're kind of a little more careful with your driving experience and driving in, you know, eco and comfort all the time, you may see 20 plus mpg. If you're really hypermiling in a sense, really being very careful, I've seen up to 24, 25, but again, that's really not what you're going to be seeing on the daily average. Especially in the city, it doesn't typically get the best fuel economy. It does, the 48 volt system does like to shut the engine off a lot when you're coming to like a full stop. It'll try to coast and regen to kind of fill up that battery a little bit, but it just isn't the most fuel efficient powertrain. I think it has to do a little bit with that interesting supercharger turbocharger setup they have going on there. I think if they just went with the turbo and the 48 volt mild hybrid, it would be a little bit more efficient. Now we're out here on the highway. I do want to demonstrate to you guys the adaptive safety systems that we have on this particular vehicle here. So we're going to pop open our safety display, or driver assistance display here. So this is primarily just focused on driver assistance. You don't have to use this. Every of the displays has a driver assistance section to it. So I just want to demonstrate this for you guys. But on our right hand side of a steering wheel here, we have all of our controls to turn on our adaptive cruise control. Very simple to use. You just pop it on once and it turns on your speed limiter, so they'll set it to a speed limit. Pop it again and you're in the adaptive cruise control setting, and you set your speed and you're on. So it does have lane keep assist, so it's going to keep you in the lane. It's going to follow those lanes as well, so it's going to have that steering assist effect as well to it, which I quite like, and it works generally quite well. Now, it's not a hands-off system. You do need to have your hands on the vehicle's steering wheel at all times for the system. It will alert you about that as well, and you can very easily adjust your following distance with these buttons right here on the steering wheel. It's a very simple system to use, and I think it works generally quite well. I wouldn't say it's the most confidence-inspiring system. I've had some instances where it kind of not necessarily, I wouldn't say glitches, but it feels like it just like pulls you a little too hard, a little too quick into a lane, or maybe out of a lane, or it thinks a lane's carving in a different direction. I have experienced that a little bit over the course of this week, but it's really nothing too major. That's kind of some stuff you'll experience in some other vehicles as well. So it, again, not the highest rated adaptive cruise control style system here, but it's definitely a good one. And I do like the visual interpretation of what's happening on your display here. You have a little bit of a tiny Velar there, as well as a steering wheel telling you to keep your hands on the wheel at all times, to remind you that this is not a full self-driving vehicle. Now, one thing you will need to note, and if you're really nitpicky with your features here, you're going to notice that this doesn't have any sort of like lane change assist or anything. It actually just shuts off your lane keep assist, like more basic systems do, to just ease you into in and out of lanes, so it's not fighting you. But some cheaper vehicles do even offer that, while gimmicky, that lane change assist function. If you do, or a few people that like it, you're not going to get it here. But again, that's a very small feature request that I don't think many people are really looking for. Coming to a stop here, brakes, again, very smooth and progressive, though I would say this pedal could use a little bit more firmness to it. I think that would inspire a little bit more confidence in the braking system here on the Velar. I'm not saying it's not a confident system, it's just this brake pedal has a little bit more of a long pedal travel in pretty much all applications to it. It feels a little bit spongy on some applications. So I guess that in that sense, that buttery smooth tuning we have to every other aspect of the Velar might need to be toned down a little bit on the braking front. Again, coming through those corners here, lots of lean and body roll, but powering through the corners, you have that glorious inline-6 that just gets you up to speed nice and quickly with a really nice strong sound to it as well, and pull from that power band. Thankfully, we have this really fantastic standard Meridian audio system, and I really wasn't a fan actually of the Meridian audio system in the Defender I had for review a few months ago. I just didn't think it really lived up to the standards, and that was an option actually on that vehicle. But this particular one, this Range Rover's Meridian audio system as a standard feature is actually quite good, and we're going to do our audio test here now to get you guys a little bit of a demonstration of said speaker system. So let's have a little bit of a go here. Turn up our audio just a little bit. And you do have the ability to adjust your treble, bass, and subwoofer in this particular audio settings, as well as your center point controls. That's pretty much all of the audio controls you have in this vehicle. And they're pretty good and easy to play with. I just wish there was a little more in terms of equalizer adjustment. If you want to get a little bit more nitpicky, that'd be nice for this $80,000 price point and this particular luxury vehicle. At this higher price point of around $80,000 that this particular Velar is coming in on, and it's really not highly specified. And being in the compact luxury SUV class, there is just so much competition that if you really aren't a diehard Range Rover fan, you need that style, you need that status, you need that nameplate, and you need that gorgeous and reductive design, and it fits your lifestyle, go right ahead. But there's just a lot of competition. You definitely are going to want to consider all of your options before making a choice in this particular segment, because it's ranging all the way down in the 40 grand range up to this Velar that goes towards $100,000, and its real prime competitors, what I think are the Macan, the Grecale, and that kind of space of vehicle. Anyways, guys, thank you for joining me on this full tour and review and drive of the 2024 Range Rover Velar. I hope you enjoyed this review, and as always, stay tuned for more coming soon on Allcarnews. Cheers.